Hi there, welcome to It's Medicinal. It's me, Harvey, and who are we?
And I'm Diabetic Dad.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just going to see if you were going to say hello back.
Oh, hi, yes. I think we're pausing because this is attempt number 2 of the day. So,
it's all gone really wrong. The other one went really well and it just didn't record.
It didn't. Shock, but it was good. So we'll do it again for the audience of however many, and maybe it'll save this time.
Exactly. Hope so. So it's medicinal. This is episode 4.2. Try again. And what we're going to talk about today is, if you haven't already noticed, I have a cold. So we're going to talk about the common cold, getting sickness while you've got diabetes.
So we're talking about colds because Harvey's had a cold for the last week, and he's had nobody to complain at except his husband. So he's going to use the podcast today to have a whinge. Excuse the horn outside my house.
That was great. I've moved out of the room that I was in earlier. There's now a baby crying next door, so it's absolutely fine. I feel your pain.
This is just life. It's the way life is.
Yeah, life comes at you fast, do you know what I mean?
So you've been unwell for the last week?
I have, yeah. I've been, to the point earlier on in the week I was really sick and poorly and dying. It was my last days on earth. I was really whinging about it. I'm a lot better now. I just sound worse than normal, and my voice isn't great anyway. But this is bad. So.
Oh, your voice is fine. I can sense there's some more nasaliness. Is that a word? What's the word I'm looking for? Mancunian. Let's go with that. There's more Mancunian in your voice, in your accent today. There's a little sinusy thing going on, but you don't sound too bad.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I appreciate the hard work that went into that compliment.
You sound fine. So what have you been doing for the cold? Have you taken anything? Have you medicated? Are you just one of those that lets it be and hopes for the best?
So yeah. So I know when I'm sick I tend to plan. So when I start getting a sore throat or a cough or anything like that, I tend to use your first defense sort of remedies. So like your little nasal sprays that say before you get a cold, take this and you won't get a cold, and things like that. It never works because I'm already at the point where I know I've got a cold. So I can't do much about it, but I tend to find that they maybe ease it off a little bit. I usually feel like I think that I would feel worse if I hadn't taken those at the start. When I'm already sick, I'm at the point of downing as much fruit juice as possible, and doing all the insulin that goes along with that as well, which is always good fun. But beforehand, I don't really tend to take anything else. It's just those first defense sort of remedies. Because I tend to find that my blood sugar will shoot up while I'm getting sick, and I don't want to do anything to exasperate that until I'm actually at the point where I'm like, right, I'm actually sick now, I'm going to have to sit down and let my body heal, so I might as well, while I'm not doing anything and my blood sugar is going to raise anyway, have all of that orange juice and, all the vitamins that you can and things like that. I tend to find that works quite well for me. I tend to think that I would actually have this cold for a lot longer if I didn't do that. So.
Yeah. So you feel that keeping your fluid levels up as well, that's kind of one of the suggestions, isn't it? Keep your fluids up. So I suppose if you're gulping juice and you're bolusing for that juice anyway, assuming there's carbs in there, then that's got to help. You mentioned vitamins as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I have kind of used in the past. I heard once upon a time that if you overdose on vitamin C, and I mean big time overdose, 5 times, 6 times your normal daily allowance of vitamin C, it can help. It's not going to cure your cold or make you feel immediately better, but it's supposed to take the edge off things.
Yeah.
for me, I've done that on a few occasions, and it seemed to shorten the life of the cold. But that may just be my imagination, and it may just be some sort of placebo effect.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's anything you've noticed before, but
yeah, I think with having like a routine when you've got a sickness, when you've got something like diabetes, I think because you automatically assume that your sickness is going to last a lot longer because your body doesn't heal as quickly. You automatically just go, well, if I've got a cold, I'm going to have it for about a month, or however long it is that you think that you're going to have it, because you think that you're not going to get better very quickly. But I think sometimes taking like a big amount of vitamins, or having like a specific ritual that you do, you trick yourself, your own mind, into thinking that you're going to get better. So your mind itself actually goes, right, I'm going to get better, which makes your immune system work better. It's a knock-on effect. It's a cycle of you thinking that you're better, so you are better.
Yeah, I think there's something into that. I think there's a lot of psychology there where you can tell yourself you're going to feel better, and that's how placebo works, I suppose, and that does kind of push you on to feel better, maybe shorten the life of the cold.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed with your cold lately? Obviously, it's still there with you, or maybe coming towards the end of it now. Have you noticed in the last week difficulties with higher blood sugars? Have you been, oh my God, what's going on here? This is so high, and there's nothing you can do, or has it just been a little bit out of whack?
Yeah, so like I tend to always run a little bit higher when I'm ill. I don't feel like I've been this ill for quite a long time anyway. But I think usually if I'm at work, because I've not taken any time off work or anything like that, it's, I might be struggling, but it is still just a cold, so I'm still going to work. I don't have the luxury of being able to have a day off and someone else pick up my work. So if I don't go in, I've got to do that the next day anyway. So it's a bit unfortunate in my circumstance, but I tend to find that if I'm at work, my blood sugar gets higher and higher and higher throughout the day, which is in contrast to what it's normally like. Because I'm fairly active, it usually kind of drops throughout the day, but it just gets higher and higher while I'm sick. Whereas if I'm at home, because I know exactly what I'm eating, and I know that I'm not doing any exercise or anything like that, and I'm doing my injections to match fairly well, I tend to roughly stay at the same sort of point, and I'll maybe do a couple of adjustments throughout the day to bring myself back down. So it's kind of like the reverse of what I'm like when I'm like fully healthy, but I've got diabetes. I'm never going to be fully healthy. But like when I'm at that point where I feel okay, it's kind of like the total opposite for me when I've got a cold or when I've got any sort of illness.
Yeah, but you know this is going to happen to you. You've had colds before. Yeah,
I've had colds and stuff. I've had like food poisoning and things like that before while I've had diabetes, and it tends to be any sort of kind of like illness does that to me. I don't know whether it's my body just going, well, normally this would happen, so we need to make sure that actually he's really okay and he's being safe and we're not killing him off. So I'm just going to dump all this sugar in and see what happens, and then it's me constantly fighting that instead anyway. So
yeah, I feel often with type 1, don't know about type 2, but in terms of type 1, just maintaining a steady blood sugar, a steady blood glucose is so difficult anyway, and anything can affect that. It can be the weather, it can be what you did yesterday, it can be exercise, you can be feeling wound up, and all those factors and 1,000,001 other things, and then into the mix, have a cold. That just makes things even harder. And there's obviously your body's fighting that off. It's busy doing other things, as you said. Dump a load of glucose in there for you when you don't expect it.
Yeah.
It just makes life so difficult with diabetes, and that's just a cold. And I think most people would just be just a cold. It's just a cough, snivels and sneezes. You'll be fine. But there's a lot more to it when you've got diabetes to manage as well. The knock-on effect in terms of what am I injecting? What am I eating? You've got to maybe think a little bit more detailed than you would normally.
Yeah.
And normally you might be thinking quite detailed anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you feel your cold has just been that? It's just been a cold. You don't feel you've had flu?
I don't know. And as we discussed in our earlier podcast, I have been very bad this year, and I didn't get my flu jab because I forgot, because I'm an idiot. Every year since diagnosis, I've had a flu jab, and this year it was mentioned when I was at the GP and things like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get it booked in, I'll get it sorted. I can do it at, a pharmacy or wherever, it doesn't matter. I just never did it. It just fell out of my mind. But this is like the worst, because I don't know if it was, I wouldn't say I've had flu. I don't feel like I've been completely immobilized by this. I don't feel like I've had flu, but I don't know that I've ever had flu before to base that against. So I don't know if I have had flu or not. But it's the 1 year that I just, I've not actually had my flu jab, and I feel like it could be because I've not had the flu jab. It is just sod's law. So it's one of those ones. I think I've shot myself in the foot without really intending to.
Could be. This year was the first time I've had the flu jab, and again, like you, I don't know if I've ever had flu. I feel maybe once I was so unwell, it was difficult to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And whether that was flu or man flu, I don't know, but it was quite bad. And this year was the first time I've had it. I felt guilted into it by people on Twitter, family members, just saying, look, if you get flu, that could be you done. That's actually possibly dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And, with me, with blood tests and injections, other people giving me injections, I get queasy. I need to lie down. But in this instance, I just bit the bullet, and it was nothing. You know yourself, it doesn't especially hurt. Maybe you'll get a sore shoulder for the next day.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. That's all you get. And to stop you getting flu, just that moment of discomfort, it's so much better, I feel.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure you'll go ahead and have it next year, maybe based upon this.
Well, yeah, if it's going to stop me from getting even if this is just a cold, if it's going to stop me from getting something like this, absolutely, I am having my flu jab next year, because this is ridiculous. But yeah, I think a lot of people have got that fear of having an injection like that, because it does seem like it's a big needle and stuff like that. You can get used to doing your injections every day, but that's like a fine hair needle with you by yourself in a room, compared to when she pulls out this needle and it looks like a sword in comparison. It's massive. But it's something that it doesn't really hurt. Sometimes when they do it, you get a bit of a pinch, and it can be a bit sore the day after. But it's something that's well worth doing. I would rather have a sore arm for a day or two, maximum, than have to go through this again, because this is absolutely ridiculous. I can barely breathe. At my place of work, I do briefings for 5 to 6 people on a daily basis, and it's very difficult to talk to someone in a long running narrative when you're sicker than this anyway. It's really difficult to keep up that conversation level and keep people engaged. So it definitely has generally my work life as well. It's taken a massive impact for this 1 week, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be the difference between hitting our targets and not hitting our targets because people are motivated or not.
Yeah, well, exactly. It can have knock-on effects at work and at home, and with your diabetes. Just a cold, and people will say it's just a cold. But actually, the other things it can cause are far more than just a cold. I know what you mean. If you've got coughs, snivels, and things, all you want to do is cough, or sneeze, or snivel. And even in this podcast, you must be thinking, I just want to sniff.
I'm sort of holding my breath most of the time, because then I don't feel like I need to sniff. So I'm doing as best as I can. If I do sniff at any point and people find it disgusting, then I'm not that bothered, if I'm honest.
Let's do a joint.
Just yeah, it's beautiful.
So, I guess you never felt you'd had flu, and this is the worst cold you feel you've had in a while.
Yeah.
You've never been so unwell that you've been hospitalised. There's never been an incident of DKA with anything like that.
No. Thankfully, I've never been since diagnosis. This is probably the worst illness I've had. Bar maybe I've had like food poisoning since as well, which was horrible, but it's a different sort of sickness, So I've not since diagnosis. I've never had to go to hospital. I've never been in DKA or anything like that. So I've been pretty fortunate with it. It's something that, because I know that I'm ill, I do test my blood sugar a lot more, and I am able to, match my meals and things like that, and do my little corrections at the same time. So I'm very cautious of that, because I am one of those happy-go-lucky people that don't really test their blood that much and things like that, but I tend to test it a fair bit more when I am sick, because I know that throughout the day, even if I'm not doing anything, I've been laid on the floor doing absolutely nothing for 2 hours, but that doesn't mean that my blood sugar isn't going to go right. You're going to go from being 8 to being 14 for no reason. So
it can certainly do that. So you're not a techie guy as such when it comes to diabetes and management.
Absolutely not, as you know.
You and I are both MDI. We both do the old school injections, and I use a CGM, and you use the blood in your fingertips.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that in the last week or so you would have benefited more in terms of keeping your blood glucose maybe at a nicer number if you did have a CGM?
Yeah, I do think that with CGMs, that they're a great piece of tech. They're not they're not for me generally. I don't want to concentrate on my blood sugars that much because it would just create that stress in my life, which will then make me sick anyway. But I do think that when I am ill, whenever I get like a cold or like when I've had food poisoning and things like that, I do think that they would be a massive help because I could just keep on track of my blood continuously. Or even if I'm not looking at it all the time, I could have a look and see what the trend was per day while I'm sick, to see if like at a specific point in the day my blood sugar's raising, and then why is that? Is it because of something that I've eaten before, or is it because, it's just my body, so like my liver's just secreting more sugar out because it thinks that I need it because I'm sick? But I'd be able to find that out a lot easier with that kind of tech, and I do think that would be a massive help for me. It's just because I'm so uninterested in my normal day-to-day life, and I'm ill so often, not as often as a lot of other people. I tend to find that it's not something that I would put my hand in my pocket for, because I just don't think it is worth it for me being a little bit ill for 1 week. Because I can afford the time to be able to test my blood more often and things like that. I know it's not always possible for other people, and I think as well, other people that get sicker more often, that have other long-standing sicknesses and things like that, I think they are a massive help to them, because they can see trends and they can actually prevent trends from happening in terms of their blood sugar always rising or always dropping.
You don't think getting ill often enough to make it worth the cost. And I think you mentioned before you could become obsessed by the numbers.
Yeah, it's a massive worry to me, because I struggle. I'm quite like an obsessive person anyway. I struggle quite a lot with that sort of stuff, and I don't think that being there for me to look at constantly will make me feel any better about it, or even want to adjust my blood sugar. It will just make me think I'm not doing something that I should be doing. I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing that right. And then I'll get irritated with it, and then I'll do it even less, and then it'll get even worse, and it'll literally just be that cycle, and then I'll get into like this weird depression spiral that I don't want to be in, that there was no reason for it, and it was all because I had a bit of a sniffle on Tuesday. So, you know.
So what are your tips then in terms of, I've got a cold coming on.
Yep.
So what are you going to do?
So
Your symptoms.
So for me, like I use like the first defense stuff, and I make sure that I'm relaxing myself properly, and doing like that bit of self-care that makes you feel better. Because I think that a lot of getting over illnesses and stuff like that isn't necessarily about what you actually put in your body. It's all about how you feel about the things that you're doing and about what it is that you're putting in your body. So I think a lot of the time your body creates like a placebo effect. So what I tend to do is I have nice hot baths every evening if I'm sick. I'll be doing it tonight. And I have like a beer in the bath as well. Just the one, nothing big, like, you know, just a little glass of beer. But it's because it relaxes my muscles a little bit. And I tend to find that like a nice hot bubble bath will relax my muscles as well. And I tend to find that if I get a better night's sleep, I feel better, which, you know, your body is supposed to heal more while you're asleep, supposedly. So, you know, so I tend to find that works really well for me. It's not going to work for everybody, obviously, but, you know, I think it's one of those things that it just makes me feel better, so then I actually feel better.
Yeah, I don't think there's much you can do in terms of cold. You can't cure your cold. It's going to go. It's going to pass. And sometimes they're going to last longer than other colds. So I think if you're making yourself feel better in other ways, so your bubble bath and the water vapor that's going up your nose while you're laying in the bath, that might help to clear you out as well a little, you know, if you're feeling bunged up and snivelly.
Exactly.
You know, I find a 6-pack of beer in the bath can help. And obviously it keeps you nice and calm.
Chills you out, relaxes you, puts you out for the night. You end up waking up in the bath. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. You know, I think that's covered colds quite well, and I know that other people on Twitter and social media lately, I don't know what it is. Maybe you've all just been giving each other your germs.
Do you know what it is? It's all the sex that we've been having.
Is that what it is?
It is, yeah.
It's all that exchanging of bodily fluids.
Yes.
Giving each other your diseases.
Absolutely.
It makes me think about your tweet chat.
Yes.
2 days ago. It was Wednesday, wasn't it?
It was.
I think it was one of the better tweet chats we've had on GB Doc lately. All of them have been good, of course. So he posted a tweet chat lately. You were wonderful as well. However, this one, I feel you touched on a subject which doesn't get spoken about nearly enough.
No, it absolutely doesn't.
And it was sex. If you're listening to this and you didn't see the tweet chat on Wednesday, Harvey and David spoke candidly and openly about sex and diabetes involving people's sex lives, and it was light-hearted as well, and I think that helped people to engage more. I know certain people were lurking and they were just watching and hoping to learn a little, and maybe feel more comfortable before they spoke.
Yeah.
But it's one of those subjects, I feel, alongside mental health, that is kind of taboo, and it shouldn't be, and it gets ignored by HCPs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. You've hit the nail on the head there, because it's something that I think a lot of people don't like to talk about anyway. Not just healthcare professionals or anything like that, but people actually don't want to talk about it themselves because they feel embarrassed about who it is they are sexually, like as a sexual person. It's something that it's one of those things. I think generally, historically, it's kind of a shameful thing, and I don't think it should be. You should be able to talk about what it is that you do in your bedroom or in your kitchen or in your bathroom, wherever it is that you like to do it, into a flannel. That's your choice. You should be able to do whatever it is that you want to do, but you should also not feel bad about that either. Unless you're doing something wrong to somebody else, I don't think you should feel bad about it. And I think a lot of people have concerns in relation to their diabetes, and sexual health. There's a lot of people that are worried that, you know, they're going to have a really low sex drive, or they're not going to be able to maintain an erection. There's all sorts of stuff, you know, there's women that were talking about like vaginal dryness and all sorts of stuff like that. And it should be things that people can just actually talk about. But a lot of, you know, like diabetic specialist nurses and things like that, they don't want to know. It's, you know, if you bring it up, it's a very much, here's a pamphlet, get out of my office kind of conversation, because they feel a little bit embarrassed about it because they don't know the answer, which is absolutely fine, but they're also not asking the question either. So, you know, it's something that doesn't seem very fair to me that we don't tackle that topic, because we've started to tackle things like mental health, and rightly so, we should be, but mental health has a direct correlation on your sexual health as well, like in your sex life, but your sex life has a direct correlation on your mental health as well. You know, there are plenty of people that don't have sex and are absolutely fine with that and have, like, you know, a perfect mental health life and stuff. But there are some people that need it to be able to feel good about themselves, but they don't want to bring up that topic with their HCP, and their HCP is not willing to bring it up with them either. So, you know, they could be really struggling with something that they're never going to get help for, which is just such a shame, because at the end of the day, we've all, you know, bar a few people, we've all fucked before, so it's not like it matters.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. I know that you've had some anonymous questions in the tweet chat.
Yes.
Which you posted. And before the tweet chat, I think maybe you were partly involved. I had a tweet discussion with a couple of people of a similar subject, and it inspired a couple of guys to DM me and ask me what I think about certain things. And I'm not going to talk about it because it was done anonymously.
Yeah.
What I think about certain things, where could they get help, and without tooting my own horn, being someone with quite a few followers on Twitter, could I talk about this a little more and highlight it? So I feel that your tweet chat certainly did that, and I feel that, well, as you mentioned, mental health, absolutely, that's getting covered more, and it should be. Maybe sexual health is one of the things that needs to be focused on a little bit more with HCPs. I understand an appointment with your consultant, your GP, it's going to last, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe. They can't ask you about sex, mental health, HbA1cs, and all of the things tied in with your diabetes in one appointment. But they can, maybe over the course of a few appointments, touch upon those subjects now and again.
Yeah.
Because you and I can speak about sex openly on podcasts and on Twitter, and perhaps we feel comfortable enough to talk to our HCPs. A lot of people don't, and they need the HCP to say, how are things going in that department? Are you feeling okay? Just as they might ask, how's your mood?
So yeah, like exactly, like you get 15 minutes for your HCP conversation, you know, which might happen maybe once every 6 months if you're healthy enough to be that lucky, that you don't have to go to your doctors more often. But why would 10 minutes of that be covered with, so your HbA1c was this, you really need to bring it down, it needs to be more like this sort of number, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. All well and good, but that conversation you had with me 6 months ago, and that's not helpful. What would be helpful is actually telling me how to get back on track with my mental wellness and how to get back on track with my sexual health, because maybe my sex drive has like gone through the floor because I'm not feeling great, and I'm not feeling great because my blood sugar's high. My blood sugar's high because I'm depressed because my blood sugar isn't great. You know, it's a full circle, so why not actually tackle all pieces of that circle, because then you will have the full circle being a healthy circle and a better HbA1c.
Yeah.
You know, it's
all of those things are going to be linked together. If you can deal with one aspect which is kind of out of whack, whether that's your mental health, your sexual health, A1C or anything, then dealing with that can mean the other aspects of your well-being can catch up, and you can start to feel better in other departments. But all of those things I feel, need to be spoken about. If it's not on a constant thing, if it's not on each appointment, if it's just once a year, at least you know that as a person with diabetes, you've got an issue, you're finding it awkward to talk about that, but you've got an appointment coming up in 5 months' time. You may well wait for that appointment knowing that your HCP is going to ask you the question, and you can say, actually, I might need some help with this now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to start with, at least as well. Maybe having that conversation once a year, like having it as just a question is, are you fine with your, sexual health? Do you want any advice? Do you need any information or anything like that? That would be absolutely perfect, because the amount of people that were on the tweet chat that said, I've had absolutely no healthcare professional give me any sort of advice or even broach the subject of sex in relation to my diabetes. Half of the people that were on there just said, no, they've just told me to wear condoms, and that if you get pregnant, you probably won't have a baby, which is absolutely horrible, and it's shocking for someone to just out of hand just say that to somebody. Is absolutely horrific, because they should be providing support. And what if that person, there are people out there whose only real dream is to be a mother or to be a father. Why would you just offhand take that from them like that without even thinking about the consequence of what you're saying? Because just right there, you're damaging their mental health, also probably their sexual health. And it's absolutely horrific that people can get away with speaking to people like that. I do think that a lot of healthcare professionals don't understand that they work in basically a customer service sort of environment. They see a patient, they should be providing excellent service to them and then letting them go on the merry way.
Yeah.
But that's not how they see it. They're ticking a box and then they're just getting that person out of their door. Which is horrific, because that's probably not why they went into that profession. It's not great.
Yeah, you think they should show an element of care. I do firmly believe most HCPs are that way. I do feel that most of them are there to help. I understand what you mean, that there's a lot of box ticking going on.
Yeah.
I understand they've got a clinic full of people and they want to get those people in and out, because they don't want to hear Joe Blogs complaining at the desk, when's my appointment, I've been waiting half an hour, and they're waiting an hour longer than maybe they want to before the clinic closes, because they've got so many people to see. I understand, nobody wants to be at work all the time, but there's got to be an in-between with all HCPs. There's got to be a level of care shown on all aspects of diabetes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sexual health and all the other things that have been a lot ignored, basically, until lately, when it comes to mental health. But many other aspects do get ignored.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel that you and I could do a full podcast upon sexual health.
And I think we should at some point.
Yeah, because it's a big subject. A lot of people want to talk about it, but a lot of people don't feel comfortable to talk about it openly on social media. So maybe if you and I talk about it, it will help, and it will help other HCPs that listen to this to talk about it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if people have got questions and they're not comfortable asking them, but want to find out more information, and they're not, really very interested in Google MD in it, which I understand. If they want to send me a private message or anything like that, they absolutely can. I can speak to them about it. Like I say, I'm not like any sort of guru on this, because I have given people advice. And if that advice is wrong and you end up, getting like your dick trapped in a cheese grater or something like that, I don't feel like that's my fault. I feel like, use your common sense with advice that you're given. Don't just take it as gospel. But if you're happy to have that back and forth, absolutely, you can private message me. That's not a problem. If there's something that people want us to bring up in a podcast, I think that, you know, they've got every right to message one of us. We can always bring something up as a specific question, and if they don't want to be named, that's fine as well, you know.
Well, I feel that we could push on that at some point, whether that's the next podcast or one of the ones we do in future.
Yeah.
But such a big subject, I'm sure we could do that, and perhaps, if we could get the sandwich working, maybe one of those lovely HCPs on Twitter will come along and have a chat to us.
And give us some real doctorate advice, because I am not a doctor and I do not claim to be, but I do give out medical advice.
Fantastic. Shall we call it a day?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, it's been about half an hour.
That's not too bad.
You open the podcast today, Harvey, so why don't you close it?
Okay, I will do. So, this has been It's Medicinal, with me, Harvey, Diabetic_me on Twitter, and who are you?
And I'm at Diabetic Dad UK on Twitter.
And we hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've spoken a lot more about more stuff than just a common cold. But if you do wish to speak to us and privately message us or anything like that, that is absolutely fine. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye for now, guys.